Flipping it up and out. Bogut! A recent block by Bogut.
Good recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get Rogue.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, the basketball series. Myself, Mike Procopio. Another week for NBL, NBA, and world basketball news. A lot to get through, so let's get started. Pro, what's news from the US?
Nothing new, Bogues. Watched, I'll tell you what, the Lakers should stop production on that LeBron James statue and build one for Jared Vanderbilt.
He was that good today, huh?
Oh, my God. He saved them today. I mean, they were...
27-point comeback or 20-something, right?
27, yeah. I mean, they were dead to rights first half, folks. They couldn't make any shots. They couldn't do anything. ISO. And then this guy out of nowhere, folks. Just, I'll tell you what, I'll put Darvin Ham, I'll give him a lot of credit. He ended up putting Vanderbilt on Luka. In his length and size, he's got great feet so he can move. I mean, look, it's not going to happen over an 82-game season shutting a guy like that down, but I mean, he took them out of his game a little bit where it made it a lot more difficult, and then they would switch on guards to Luka, so just in case they switched, but he was really effective, and just the energy he showed, just running the floor, finishing, passing. He was good. He was really good. And like I said, when they made the trade with Westbrook, I don't mind the trade they made as long as he was in the trade coming back. That was really smart by Pelinka to get him. I think he could help them. Look, they're still terrible. They're not a good team, and I still think they could miss the play-in depending on schedule. But I think that he really gives them sort of a boost defensively long-term past this year. And I think it was pretty cool to watch.
Finished with, what did he have? 15, 17, and 4 steals. So played really well. Really, the pickups they got, I mean, Beasley's been okay for him. Had a bad night tonight, but yeah, I thought they were dead to rights against Dallas and they came back. But the Lakers are coming for that 10, baby. Let's go. But let's get rolling. Team of the week. Who you got this week, Pro? I want to hear yours this week. Let's go.
Bogues, I get the Lakers.
No way. They won 3 straight, right?
First of all, it's like 3 days in the week. So, I mean, you know whatever I was going to pick.
There's only 2 or 3 games.
Jacked up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but 4-1 since the trade. Decent this week. They're not really beating anybody great, but I'll give it to them. They need all the help they can get. Although I was probably going to go with Sacramento just from that 176-175 win, but I'll give it to the Lakers, man. I mean, look, they won a few games.
3 straight? Dallas, Golden State, and New Orleans?
Mm-hmm. And look, they do play hot. I'll give it to them. Even before the trade and all that, they do play hot. They're dysfunctional for sure, but they play hard. They compete. They've had their ups and downs with injuries, mostly downs. But I'll give it to them. Shoot, they're knocking on the door at 10. They're a game out of 10 right now. So who knows? But,
surging for that 10 seed.
I'll tell you what. If I didn't watch the game today, this is probably the the third game that the university allowed me to watch for the Mavs this year. But it was cool. It was cool to watch that come back just to see a team compete when you're down 27. You know how that is, Bogues. Like, you think they're dead to rights. You think they're going to quit. They didn't quit. They played hard. Reeves played well when he needed to. Obviously, LeBron and AD did their thing. But, I was very impressed with Vanderbilt's. He's a guy who's probably he's a free agent. He's probably going to get 60 to 80 million. And I think he'll be a really good fit because he does things that, LA player probably you didn't expect him to do. Play hard, do the scrappy things, doesn't need the ball, and pretty effective. I think it's a pretty easy signing for them, in my opinion, but we'll see.
Good one. I got the Charlotte Hornets.
Oh, wow.
They have they've won 4 straight, I believe, as of today. So they're the only, they were until the Lakers won today, which they got lucky winning that game. But them and the Lakers are the only teams in the bottom 10 of the league that have multiple game winning streaks higher than 2. So, and they've been playing well. They're somewhat healthy now. They're still 19 and what are they? 19 and 43. But to have a winning streak when your record's that bad, and I don't think they were strategically tanking, to be honest with you. I think it just tanking found them. But the fact that you're still competing at this point of the season is impressive because you could have packed it in. Atlanta, the Spurs, Minnesota, and Miami. So 3 of those 4 teams are tough teams. Minnesota, Miami, and Atlanta, all 3 of those teams should beat Charlotte when you look at it on paper. So I give them the nod there. Mark Williams, rookie from Duke, is emerging as a solid center in the league. He's a double-double guy. I think hence the Plumlee, while they gave up on Plumlee so easily, Plumlee was solid for him, but they were like, you know what, we're going to move the veteran away. We're going to develop our young guys, which is what you should do. And this is one of the few teams that's in the bottom 10, bottom 5 of each respective conference that is actually fun to watch. If you don't look at their record and you watch them play, they're fun. They're a fun team. They got Ball there. They got Hayward's playing okay. Oubre Jr. They got Smith Jr. High flyer, dunking on people. So they got a lot of different guys that can entertain you. But for a 19-43 team, I mean, I'd still rock up if they were in my home city to watch them, pro.
Bogues are scrappy. They're tough. They're not very good, but they do compete. And I think that if they do get the Frenchman, they do have like a solid core of players around him. So it's not like if he goes to Houston, it's just like young guy after young guy after young guy. And it may not be the best environment for him, right? You go to San Antonio, yeah, they've got decent players, don't get me wrong. But they don't have a player like LaMelo Ball. And I'm not a huge LaMelo Ball fan, but the guy is an all-star, sort of knocking on the door of being an all-star, consistent all-star. Going forward, you got him, Rozier, Hayward, PJ Washington. You could use some cap money to get, a free agent or two. Not the worst thing in the world, and it's a small market team. It'd be a good fit, but they do compete. They do play hard. Ball's been hurt most of the year. Obviously, PJ Washington, he's up and down, but he can give you 15 and 5. You said like Mark Williams. Like I'm a huge Plumlee fan. I was a little mystified by the trade, to be honest with you. But like you said before, it allows the young guy to play, and you need to play the young guy. You're not really going anywhere with Plumlee. You dealt him off. It gives him a chance to compete for a championship. Gives you guys gives them the ability to develop a young guy, to give him minutes, because like I always say in the show, it doesn't matter about how many drills you put him in and how he does in practice. If you don't get him real NBA minutes for him to figure it out, make mistakes, build up, compete, and show up every day knowing that he's going to play some minutes and compete for that, I think you're stunting the growth a little bit. So yeah, I do agree. They're definitely a good team for sure.
Yep. Fun to watch.
What's your team of the week, folks?
My week team of the?
Yeah.
It is the Miami Heat.
Oh.
They continue to lose must-win games. They're still 7th in the East. They've lost 4 straight, but they're just, like I said, they continue to lose must-win games. They lost to Brooklyn, who they should beat. Milwaukee, okay, wash. Denver, okay, wash. And then Charlotte. They need to go at least 2-2 in those 4 if they're serious about getting into the playoffs and out of that playing realm. They're sliding further and further away from 6. New York is balling at 6, and they've won 5 straight. But they're now 2.5 full games below the cutoff for the play-in. They're 7th. They're only 1 game ahead of Atlanta, and they're only 3.5 games they're 4 games out of falling out completely. So they need to get a move on. They started Kevin Love at the 4, which I found interesting. I don't think you can play him at the 4. I think Miami's going to figure that out very, very quickly. I think he's a backup 5 at this point in his career, just because defensively they're going to pick on him, and he just can't move his feet like he once could. And I think he's more valuable at the 5 because you can stretch him off the bench. He can wrestle in there. He's strong enough to wrestle on big 5s. They're going to post him up, which there isn't very many of. So they're still figuring things out, but they're just inconsistent. I mean, Jimmy Butler came out and said he's sick of losing and all that kind of stuff. Well, you're losing games that you shouldn't lose, and there's a lot of these games they're just letting slip, which hasn't been the Miami of the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. Like they would take care of business, ruthless against the teams they're meant to beat, and they challenge the teams they're not supposed to and steal 1 or 2, and they'll be top 4 in the East. Whereas this season, it's just it just does not look consistent. Everything, just looks clunky for them. I don't know what's going on, if there's issues there in the locker room or the rotations or the coaching. I don't know, but they might be looking at a point where this roster's probably, got to its potential the last couple of years, and this is it. A la Chicago, similar kind of feel. Now, you don't doubt Miami because of Pat Riley and Spo, and they're a classy organization, but I mean, if they don't show you something the next month, this might be a roster blow up in the off season, bro.
Yeah, Bogues, it's funny because they've got a good sort of mix of talent. You've got Jimmy Butler and Adebayo being like sort of the headliners and the top two in the team. You got Tyler Hero, who could sort of play that role of someone who could score 25 off the bench. Probably legitimately could be starting, but he doesn't. They definitely need a spot off the bench there. Lowry's hot and cold. And then you've got like that log jam of players. You got like Max Strus, you got Caleb Martin, you got Gabe Vincent. Sort of like a lot of the same type of guy. And yeah, it's an interesting group. Victor Oladipo sort of still can't really find his rhythm yet. He's got some decent, has some decent showings. Duncan Robinson has been a disaster. Ever since last playoffs, he really just can't find his footing, in my opinion. You just don't really have it. I think you do got to explore if you can't get something done. If you can't get something done here, where are they sitting at, Bogues? Like 7-8 right now in the East?
Well, they're 7. So they're far
7.
from 6 because Knicks have gone on a tear. So they're 2.5 behind 6, but they're only 4 away from 11. So,
right.
I mean, they get a play-in. It's considered a failure of a season for them, in my opinion. And the clock's ticking. That, like I said, this next month for them, if you're a Miami Heat fan, it's super valuable to see what's going to happen in the future, because you fall to a 7, 8, 9, 10, out in straight sets in a play-in. Maybe you get through to a first round, but that's your ceiling. You got to move on from this roster. It's not working. I mean, what else can you surround with their cap and everything the way it's going? They paid Adebayo, they paid Hero, Duncan Robinson sitting there doing nothing. You're going to have to eventually move on from it and try to blow it up. I think people say, "Oh, it's too early to say that." Well, they're just not that good. Coming from the finals a few seasons ago in the COVID year to now, I think that the ship is sailing, that the peak has been hit, and you might need to move off. So that bell curve, we talk about a bell curve, I think it's gone towards the downward direction. Can you salvage it and get it back up? You're going to have to do that with some major tweaks to the roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look at the East you've got. I mean, you can't afford to be that 7, 8, 9 team in a conference, in a conference like the East, because look, Boston's not going anywhere for a while. Milwaukee's not going anywhere for a while. Never know really about Philly, but they've got talent and young talent and established talent. Cleveland's on the rise. Never know about Brooklyn. Like, they've got some pieces that are decent. They could still compete with you, and the Knicks are right there in that log jam. Then you got yourself, Atlanta, and then you've got the down teams that I don't know how much more they could rise up. Maybe Orlando out of that sort of hodgepodge of like Toronto, Washington, Chicago, Indiana, Orlando. So the Magic are probably the only team out of that could probably rise up. So yeah, you got to do something. This is like, there's not really a lot more you can do. You're not going to draft a stud. You can't really trade like great young players off the bench that you don't really use but have value that you could add another player that's a really good rotation player or a starter. So it'll be interesting what they do. Maybe you package Strus and Martin. Maybe you get something out of that. I don't know, but you might have to think about Jimmy Butler, because I would think that Adebayo and Hero are your untouchables, right? And then, well, Hero to a certain degree, and Adebayo definitely a can't touch guy. And then I would think that they would listen to Butler and they would listen to everybody else, as far as trades and things. But yeah, I agree. If they don't really make a push and it's going to be a play-in sort of situation, that you might want to look at, making changes to the roster. Look, Pat Riley's done it countless times in countless different teams that he was a part of. Lakers, Knicks. You ever read the history of his dynasty with the Lakers or good runs with New York or even the Heat? He was always able to get young pieces together, sort of put trade pick up trades, pick up free agents and things like that. I don't think they have the cap room to pick up a sort of a headliner with cap room or anything like that unless they use their mid-level exception. So they're going to probably have to do it with, trading somebody like, Jimmy Butler or even Hero and see what they can do. I think Kyle Lowry's sort of on his last legs as far as having true value to get anything back for. So you're not really going to get much there. So it'll be interesting. You probably have to deal, a first round pick or multiple first round picks with Duncan Robinson to get him off your books. So it'll be an interesting, 5 to 7 months definitely with Miami.
I think Brooklyn have every potential to fall out of the 6 as well. They don't have enough offensively, in my opinion. I think they're solid defensively. They've looked real clunky lately. Haven't been playing well, lost 2 straight. But I think there's every potential for them to fall. So there is a spot to gain. Who's going to take it in that top 6? You'd think it'd be Miami, but man, the way they're playing is not great. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they finish the season. Who you got?
I've got Brooklyn, actually. I got Brooklyn. I was actually going to go with Miami, and then halfway through our conversation, I'm looking and I was looking up, and I was like, you know what, 2 straight, and
4 of their last 5, I believe. Yeah, 4 of their last 5. So, 6 of their last 9. They win, loss, 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 win, loss, 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 win, loss, loss. So they're not doing well.
No, and I know the trade and all that, what they lost, but still, you've got good players. Dinwiddie, Bridges, Claxton, O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, Curry, Harris. You got a solid group there, and you should be able to beat teams that, the teams that they lost to, and, losing 2 straight. I mean, the Atlanta Hawks, I mean, they're a mess right now, change of coaches and things like that, and they're not playing well and consistent. You still have enough good, solid veteran players with a mix of young guys that can go. Royce O'Neal to that list as well. You should be able to beat teams, and especially guys like the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, come on, and I just think they're inconsistent right now. They got to find their footing. Look, they've got spacing, they got scoring, they got guys who could score, guys who could defend. You could switch. You get shooting off the bench with Harris and Curry. You have talent, but you just got to find your consistency now. You got to find your legs and go forward. Look, is this a team that's any good? No, not great, but you still could compete. You still should be able to beat those mid-level and lower teams. And, teams ahead of you, we always talk about that. That's a tough one. But you got to beat teams sort of on your same level or below. You got to take care of that. And I feel as though, right, I know they're new with each other, after the trade and things, but they should have a better showing for sure with this. And
they lost to Chicago by over 40 the other night, which is inexcusable. Chicago aren't very good. So that's a prime example. This could be the fatigue of the trade, all that kind of stuff, and they could just let the season implode. So let's hope all goes well for them and they can make. And Ben Simmons out of the lineup again, pro. I'm not sure what the injury is because he played before All-Star break and has come back from All-Star break with the same, I assume the same knee injury. So he's been out as well. Not that he's in the rotation fully, but
it's on ESPN.com. Bruised ego. So he's
I was waiting for it.
Ego. Yeah,
I shouldn't have led you into that. I was waiting for it. But all right, moving on to some news. The NBA All-Star Game, pro ratings. This is the wording they use now. Instead of giving you how easily, it says ratings easily the lowest ever. How shocked are you, pro? Seriously, I'm just absolutely shocked that no one tuned into that train wreck of a weekend. All-Star Saturday Night and Rising Stars also down to new lows. So by All-Star ratings, the first ones were the actual All-Star Game. All-Star Saturday Night and Rising Stats also down to all new lows. Pro, the only one that increased on last season viewership numbers was a celebrity game.
Nice.
So at least it went from 20 to 30, apparently, they said. But I mean, the writing's on the wall for it, man. It needs to be fixed. Some people threw out some good ideas. I like this one, NBA versus the world. Do you like that, pro?
I sort of did, but I think that's a better option. Look, the history of the East and West is awesome and everything like that, but the game has been terrible for over a decade now and more than that. But Yeah, I think it will add some spunk to it for a year or two, but I don't think that. I think it will fall right back into line. I think it will fall right back into line after a couple years. To be honest with you, I just don't. I think the same type of issues are going to be facing Bogues. I think you're going to be facing guys who don't want to get hurt, guys that just want to take it easy, just want to turn it into like a dunk fest and one mixtape tour. Actually, you know what? That's too low of a blow to the N1 mixtape tour compared to the NBA All-Star game. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Bogues? Because I did hear.
I think the world thing makes sense, NBA versus the world, because I think there'll be a little bit of kind of passion. You know, there'll be a little bit of like, oh man, we can't lose to those internationals, and there already is that international versus American rivalry within just the MVP voting, right? Like people are, oh, you know, all these international guys, you know, blah, 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 internationals are taking over the league. So I know the Americans don't like hearing that. And I know the internationals don't like hearing soft, you know, don't play defense. So maybe you lead that game into those plant some comments, you know, with some AI technology about, hey, Jason Tatum said you international guys are bums. And then you have some international players say Americans just are selfish one-on-one guys. You know, put something out, light a nice little fire out there, and then let the chips fall where they may. They got to do something to save it because it's a shit show. And we spoke about money last episode. I mean, I don't know. Some of these guys just make too much money to care for another 3-4 million. As harsh as that is for some people to listen to, it's a reality. So I don't know how you fix it. I don't know. Coming from Australia, I know in rugby league, Australian rules football, they stopped doing it because of injuries. They called it the state of origin. So they have this thing here, pro, where with Australian rules football, you play for your state that you were born in, and it's kind of an all-star team from that state, right? And you play against other states, and it used to be really passionate and blah, blah, blah. NRL still do it, which is rugby league, and it's that state of origin series is a 3-game series in the middle of their season. That draws more eyeballs and has more passion than the actual league final. It's insane. They've kept it going because it brings in so much revenue, and it's so great for the sport. But the risk is there's a lot of guys that, you know, get concussed and break something and then they don't have them for their club, but they still have somehow injected so much money. They get a massive bonus to playing it. With the NBA, you can't really go that route because it's different amounts of money, man. So I don't know. I think try it. I know they've tried it with the rookie game, but no one gives a shit about the rookie game, let's be honest. Let's try it with that. Let's do a team of international guys and a team of American guys for a couple of seasons, and then ramp it up and have the media, whoever loses the first season, have them smash them in the media and say, see, that's why international players aren't better. They shouldn't even be in MVP voting. They didn't win, or vice versa, right? Build up a bit of animosity there and see where it goes. They got to try something, man. And Adam Silver will be doing something to try and fix this, because those ratings were the worst of all time, like worst ever. I mean, that's pretty glaring, bro.
Yeah, I think they need to bring the CIA in to do a smear campaign against the international players and just sort of do something where it's gonna. I just don't think that they care like that. No offense to NBA players, but those guys are fixated on either one or two things. Mostly stats and getting their money, which, hey, look, that's the business of the game. And the second thing is to get geared up for the playoffs, for the teams who actually have a chance to sort of progress on that front. And I just don't think an all-star game is important to them. It's, back in the day, it's different. Look, the players are different now, and we talk about it all the time. And back then, you watch those games that competitive from the 80s and 90s, and guys going at each other. Yeah, that's great. But again, like, that could happen and make people happy. But what if a guy does get hurt? And now we're gonna, what's gonna happen? You're gonna second guess, well, why are we having this
game? Why is it going ahead?
They're getting hurt, and my favorite team, and that's just how the world works. So I just think you gotta look. I think the world, trying something different is fine. I don't think a mid-season tournament, unless you're giving these guys $20 million a piece, or something stupid like that, that's the only way. Like, and look, this thing is for a championship. That's it. Like, that's what everyone's trying to compare who's better than this player, that player. They're playing for a championship. All-Star game, they don't care. They're trying to get, Luka was trying to get to Mexico. These guys are trying to get wherever. I don't blame them. It's an all-star break, whatever. It's just that whole, East is going to beat the West. You can't just say, well, if the East wins, we'll give them home court advantage in the playoffs. 90% of those teams have no chance. Like, so they don't care. They're not going to play any harder to give the Boston Celtics, or
Exactly.
the Milwaukee Bucks. So they don't care. And I get it. Why would you care? So, yeah, East versus West, fine. Vowels versus consonants, I don't know what you do. Like, I don't think there's a way you're going to make this thing any better. I look, this whole weekend's for the fans to get eyeballs on it. So I think you should just maximize the contests and celebrity games and things like that. They stink. It is what it is. For basketball purists, they're going to hate it. But you know what? It's all about, rolling out new things. No one cares about the All-Star game anymore. It's evident by the ratings. So, like I said, gear up the the NBA dunk contest. $3 million a guy. Doesn't matter. Like, prize money doesn't matter. $3 million to show up. Get great players to do that. Like, eyeballs, content. It'll be out it'll be out of this world. Put an NBA All-Star team. Put NBA All-Stars with the celebrities. Who knows? I don't care. Horse contest. Luka versus, Steph Curry. Things like that. Like, be creative with that. And yeah, it's not going to be competitive. It's going to be a shit show. But there will be eyeballs on it. People will be happy with that. That game is such an eyesore. Like, if you just... I mean, the dunk contest was a joke too. But, like, hey, at least people are into it a little bit, right? So if you put all your money into All-Star Friday, All-Star Saturday, you X the game out. Like, I think you could still salvage the weekend because, look, people will still show up. You get stars there somehow. Meet and greets, autograph signing sessions, breakout sessions, whatever. 3-point contest, dunk contest, charity game, horse contest, whatever. Skills competition. Except that team with Jabari Smith on it. That team should be banned for a lifetime. They should never come back. But do it like that, because then people will show up. He'll be happy, and you don't have to put him through 48 minutes of hell with that All-Star game. What do you think, Bogues? Like, what you're all for the world thing?
I mean, just for the game itself, I'd try that. But I'm going to try anything. But I think the weekend. It should be about the weekend and the fans. So it's about seeing the stars in person, not necessarily playing, seeing them in the weekend, maybe have it like a tech summit where it's 3 or 4 days of different speaking gigs for different guys and you get a pass and then they're rolling different guys on stage. I'd love to see a one-on-one King of the Ring type thing where I don't think injuries will be that prevalent in one-on-one if it's like a 3 dribble max or something. Do something like that. Horse for sure I'd introduce. That's fun. Dunk contest stays, just tweak it a little bit with some more money. 3-point contest stays. I don't really care about the celeb game and all that, but I get why they do it because it brings eyeballs and brings, celebs and all that. Just get rid of the All-Star game then. If you're not gonna try to tweak it and play hard, just get rid of it. Make it an event where people can still go and see Steph Curry in the flesh or Kevin Durant or LeBron James. Totally get it. Make it that kind of weekend where the basketball is probably not as important. It's all the other events. And I think a lot of fans will still go to that, right? You go to maybe do a 3-on-3. I don't know, but they need to change it. It's just, it feels like I said, if you went to that, even as a non-basketball fan, if you went to that All-Star game, main game, All-Star Sunday, you'd be like, man, you'd leave feeling kind of dirty, man. Like, man, did I just get sold a lemon? Like, that's what I felt watching it as a purist, right? So I'd imagine some people, okay, if you're going there simply to cast your eyes on, Beyonce sitting courtside and seeing, LeBron do a windmill, then you got your money's worth. But I know there's a lot of casual fans that actually want to still see good basketball, right? And even to the casual fan, they would realize that these guys aren't playing hard. Like, this is crazy. No one gives a shit. So Michael Malone's comments were everything. He was the head coach of the West and said, this is the worst basketball game I've ever been involved in my life. That's the coach. And it's right, and Adam Silver's got something to fix. So it'll be interesting to see. They've got enough brains in their corporate boardrooms that they'll try and fix this. It's just a matter of how they're going to do it. So we'll watch that space. But I think everyone's pretty. This is one of the first times I've seen, at least online, that basketball fans online on Twitter, on ESPN, are all in agreement. It's probably the first time in history where everyone's like, no, it's a shit show. Let's change it. So it's not split 50-50. It's not split 80-20. Like, basketball fans don't like it. So they're going to have to fix it. All right, Jock Vaughn has agreed to a multi-year contract with the Brooklyn Nets. Right decision, pro?
Yes, for sure. I think when you have the guy take over and they're doing semi well, and then you trade everything away from him, and you sort of go through this rebuild phase. I think you reward the guy, and he's done well there. Look, he's done well. He's a good assistant. He's a good head coach. Guys have responded to him. You get this young team. I think he's good with the players. I think it's good. I think it shows good faith in the organization to say, hey, look, this isn't exactly what you signed up for, even though you didn't really have much of a choice. You got promoted as a head coach. But look, we did this. We'll go forward with you. We like the way you're doing it. Not enough teams do it this way. I do. Look, I've been pretty negative sometimes about what Brooklyn has done. I think this was a no-brainer. I do like the decision. What do you think, both?
Yeah, fine. I think he's better than his first time around coaching. That's for sure.
Yes.
Seems like he's learned from it. And they're in a rebuild, so let's not be honest. I know they're fifth in the East right now. They're not going to be there at season's end, is my bet. They're somewhat in a rebuild. The Ben Simmons conundrum. They've got some young youth and talent. They'll probably have some picks as well in this year's draft. And I think they're back to where they were pre the big three. In my opinion, they're pretty close. They've got a lot of picks in the future. Got some okay young talent that'll keep them competitive, and now it's a matter of will they sell their soul to the devil if it comes knocking again, pro. So, but I like the hiring. All right, Nate McMillan, the worst kept secret, finally been fired. I think they knew they were going to do this months ago. They only just did it now. Quinn Snyder just agreed to a 5-year deal as we went live. Other rumors were Ime Udoka was in the running, but they probably stayed away from that for obvious reasons. But a good signing, a very well liked coach, knows what he's doing, very well respected, and I think he's got a squad that can definitely improve defensively. I think they will get better defensively. There's no doubt in my mind because that's what he does. He's very, very astute with that, and they already have the offensive firepower. So this could be something that revamps Atlanta, and this is the final straw for Trae Young, in my opinion. This is your coach, buddy, 5-year deal. I like that they did that. I like that Atlanta said, all right, you don't want Nate? This is third coach in 4 years or whatever it is. No worries. Cool. Quinn Snyder, signing him 5 years. This is your coach, 5 years. Don't like it? Sorry, man. 5 years. What do you think?
I think it's a good hire. The only thing that I was questioning, when they fired Nate and they put out a list of coaches, automatically anybody with any type of a good past, I said, why would you ever take this job? Why would you ever take the job? Trae Young's run through 2 coaches. He easily could run through another one. I think he's going to be one of those guys, sort of Kyrie-ish, right? Where it's just got to be his way. And I get it. You're a really good NBA player. Not a great player, but a really good one. And it's just going to be that. And if you're an established coach, look, Snyder, Quinn could have taken, he would have, taken over in San Antonio when Pop retired finally, or some other good job. Like, he's in heavy demand. He's probably the number one guy that number one or number 2 guy that somebody would think of when, filling a position in the offseason. So why would you take this and have to deal with that Trae Young deal? Look, Trae Young's he's not Lucifer, for God's sakes, but he's been tough to deal with. And why go through that? And look, Quinn's been around the block for a while. He's dealt with a lot of tough type players and he's been through it, but why subject yourself to it? And that was interesting to me that he took the job now he's had a history in the organization. I believe he worked there as an assistant before, early in his NBA career. But again, it puzzled me a little bit dealing with the Trae Young deal. Look, they got a nice little young team. They got Trae and DeJounte Murray. I really like DeAndre Hunter. Not a huge John Collins fan, but he's okay. Like, to me, if I'm them, I'm dealing Young and Collins. I'm just, keeping Capella, keep Murray, keep Hunter, and then just sort of rebuild it through there. But I was a little surprised that Snyder took the job that early, Bogues, dealing with that Trae Young deal. Look, neither one of us has worked for Atlanta. We don't know Trae Young like that. We only know what we hear and what we read. But too many people have told me things, and you just sort of read the tea leaves with it, and it's sort of like he's just one of those guys that sort of to himself, introverted, has to be his way, or he's a little bit tough to deal with. Look, not that Nate McMillan wasn't a little bit tough to deal with in times, I'm sure, but look, two coaches. You heard some things about college, how hard it was to deal with them. You see body language things. You see some of the deals. But look, the guy's averaging 27 and 10. It's not exactly like you're getting the third string point guard here. The guy's really good. So that's what I think. I think it's a great hire for Atlanta. I just didn't understand why he committed so early. Like, I'm sure they would have waited for him a little bit to the offseason, could have felt out a couple of places to see what the deal was. But, yeah, I was a little shocked, actually, that he took it, because he's going to start coaching soon, like this year.
So he's sitting sideline at Tuesday's game, they said. He'll be, or he might even coach, but he might, he's going to be involved from ASAP. But I guess the reason why he took the job, Pro, was all the zeros on that contract. I assume it hasn't been reported what he's getting yet. Just says 5-year deal, but I assume it's 7, 8, 9 million a year, probably, in that ballpark. Yeah. So, and Atlanta, the downtown, not a great place to live, but Atlanta's got some beautiful suburbs, 10, 15 minutes outside the city. So, not a bad place to live, decent climate, and an underdog team that no one's thinking is going to do shit. So I think it lines up well for his mentality and the way he coaches. So Atlanta's got that done, which is good, bit of stability. That Clips versus Sag game was insane. For those who haven't seen it, 176 to 175. It was a double overtime game, but Pro, don't let double overtime fool you. This game was 153 apiece in regulation. Insane. 40-point quarters pretty much every quarter. Some big names in there, Monk with the 40 ball, and just not a whole lot of defense, not a whole lot of commitment to getting a stop. It just flowed into an open gym type game, and I think people were like, "What the hell is going on here?" But it almost eclipsed was it Denver, and who's the record? Denver and Detroit.
Denver and Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
Back in the day, in the early 90s, I think, early 90s.
Yeah, I think that was like Alex English type. Deal.
Yeah, and that was 100 in the 180s, I think. But they almost eclipsed that, but they just didn't get there. But a pretty high scoring game, that one.
Well, it's I think it's just sort of what the league wants. No offense. I mean, I'm sorry, no defense. Not no offense, no defense. But like that's just what they want. They want scoring. Fans love it. Sponsors love it. Purists don't love it, but who cares about purists anyway? I think it's a tough game to watch when it's just all that scoring and no one. Look, I don't think that the game should be in the 80s, like in the 80s, right? I don't think it should be that or grinded out, getting killed, no calls. But I think there needs to be some type of look, guys. Let's try to make a stop. Let's try to work a little bit on D. Try to get an effort in, But when you give it up 176, even like you said, double overtime, it was still really high. It's an interesting deal. So, I did see Malik Monk had like 45. Crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Insane. Some high scoring games in that one. High scoring plays in that one, but not a whole lot of defense. All right, the JJ Redick comments have caused a kerfuffle in the NBA. He's claimed that Larry Bird's era of basketball was not more physical than today's. Dominique Wilkins was one of the big names that fired back, amongst others, and basically said, Redick don't know what the hell he is talking about. I'm very disappointed he would say something so stupid. I have to agree. I think it's a crazy claim by JJ Redick. We just spoke about a scoreline that was 176 to 175. He can't be serious. I mean, I know he's been pretty anti-Larry Bird with the way he goes about it, which is his opinion. He's not a huge fan. But to say, I mean, that era of the 70s, or probably the 80s more than the 70s, the 80s and the early 90s and mid-90s, man, they had to tweak the rules because of it. Like they had to change the way the game was officiated because of that era. There was a 10-year period where it was like, you're getting clotheslined, you're getting, two guys jumping on top of you. Like, if you want a fast break with anyone, they were going to foul you before they even let you get the ball up. Like, it was brutal. And I came in, so the start, mid-2000s, was still pretty physical. Ben Wallace, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. So I felt a bit of that. And I definitely noticed towards the end of my career, it was more a track meet than it was a weight room type game, right? So I have no idea why he's trying to claim that. If he's claiming the athletes are bigger, faster, stronger these days, maybe different argument. But to say today's basketball is more physical, I think JJ Redick's, he's been in that suit and smoked too much reefer for the last couple of months, man, because those 80s and 90s were no joke.
Bogues, I think the original argument, and I could be wrong, because he's been, look, the koozie stuff, he's anti like 80s, 70s, 60s. He's anti that. He's pro number, pro analytic, pro, scoring, pro anybody who's played in this era. Look, I think that's sort of the natural thing, right? Everybody forgets the generation before, 2 generations before. Everyone thinks that like their era, wherever they're sitting in that space at that time is the best. This player's the best. This player's the best, and that's okay. That's their deal. I think they were talking about shooting. I think they were talking about Curry versus Bird in shooting. That like Curry was a better shooter. Bird didn't have to deal with the physicality that Curry had to deal with in the playoffs. Marcus Smart grabbing him, like pinning him to his hip or side or whatever. And that's just not the case. It's just not. I mean, the stuff that Bird had to deal with. And look, even though JJ's a little older, he's never really he probably grew up at the tail end of Larry Bird. Look, I lived 100 yards from Larry Bird. I lived 100 yards from the Boston Garden. I grew up with that. I watched that, 47. Look, that was just physical basketball. The guys were, you could go on YouTube, of course, and watch, sometimes that they'll run a pin down and score or what have you. And I think he was just saying that Curry is just, like, I think one of the sportscasters was saying that Larry Bird was a better shooter than Curry. And I think that he rolled his eyes to it. And then he went on this spiel. I think. I could be mistaken on that one. But look, and again, it's like the koozie line. And we talked about that. The three-point shot, most of Larry Bird's career was irrelevant. It was irrelevant. It came in 79. Bird came in 79, right? It wasn't a big thing. It's funny, Bogues. I went and I did a study for like 15 years of three-point shooting in the NBA. Right. And look, you can make the argument, no doubt, number-wise, that Curry is a much better shooter than Larry Bird. You could, because just of the numbers. They didn't take threes like that before.
Yeah, and the degree of difficulty Steph takes off the dribble, left, right, step backs, for sure.
No doubt. Now, yeah, and I'll say that, without question. Look, from somebody who worked with one of the best players of all time and competitors of all time, and Kobe, and you compare that to Larry Bird, guys like Kobe, Bird, Jordan, those guys, if they really think that a shot or something is really important for the betterment of winning in their career, they were going to develop it. I think that with the shot coming in 79, that it wasn't a shot that was really, it was like a circus shot. And it was unstable in the amount of like makes and takes that some of the leaders took. I took the averages of the top 10, and it was funny, Bogues. Like it went up, it went down. It really didn't solidify itself until about 1986, where guys really started taking them a little bit. The uptake of it. The first year of it, teams took an average of 3 threes a game. But with Bird, like if he felt as though that was an important shot to him, he would have developed it. He would have shot it a lot more. But look, back then, coaching teams across the league didn't think it was an important shot. They thought it was adopted from the ABA. They thought it was something that probably could be added. But it took a while before teams finally got it and progressed and said, wait a minute, this three-point shot could really help offenses, open up the floor and all that. It just didn't. But Larry Bird, to me, is by far the best clutch player that I've ever seen. I'll take him over anybody. Now, look, that's my deal. If I needed a player, and I think that might have been the argument, if you had one guy to take a three. And again, I didn't listen to that whole thing. I just listened to his spiel. But to me, I don't care. In their primes, Larry Bird's taking that three and not Steph. And Steph is an unbelievable three-point shooter. But Larry Bird had ice water in his veins. We've all seen heard the stories, seen it, trash talk. But look up Larry Bird clutch shots and some of the shots that he had to make in big time situations, playoff games, regular season. But back to the original thought, like to say that he didn't have to deal with physicality, you got to go back and watch actual games and not YouTube.
At the 4, he was at the 4 as well for the most part.
Yeah,
like he's played a bit of 3, but they had McHale and Parrish, and they'd move him to the 4 at times, but 3s, 4s, and 5s of that era were physical as fuck. You're talking Dennis Rodman. You're talking a little bit later. Scottie Pippen came in, obviously. Kurt Rambis, mix him in there. James Worthy. Like there was some physical guys. Charles Barkley. Like it wasn't. That's why. Like I mean, Steph's playing on the perimeter. Yeah, of course. Players today are holding and grabbing and clawing him. And I mean, Steph came to after games. He'd come out, take his shirt off, and have scratches all over him because guys are trying to stop him running off cross screens and ping downs and all the movement, but. As a player who played in today's era and the 2000s, that era in the 80s was crazy. Like you're going up for an open dunk and wondering if some guy's going to take your head off and concuss you for fucking 6 weeks. Like that was, and it was a regular foul. Like, it's just a foul, 2 free throws, man. Like I can't see, I'm concussed. I will get subbed out and get someone else to shoot him. Whereas they had to change those rules for obvious reasons. So back then it was ruthless, and I really can't think you can compare the two eras as far as physicality goes.
And you can't. And to disrespect Larry Bird, look, Larry Bird might have been one of the best winners that I've ever seen. In the sense, Bogues, right? If you look at it, look, Curry, Jordan, Kobe, all those guys really couldn't. Nobody really wins by themselves. Nobody would just it's like when they say players make other players better and they could do it by themselves. Nobody does it by themselves. Everybody needs a second and third best player. Larry Bird, look it up. His rookie year before he got there, they won 29 games. His rookie year he was clearly the best player from day one. A plus 32 in the win column from 29 to 61. I mean, with the same roster, it was a trash roster, and he took it from 29 to 61. Jordan couldn't do that. Curry couldn't do that for 5 or 6 years. Jordan couldn't do that for like 5 or 6 years, where he could really finally, put his team on his shoulders and do it almost not by himself, but almost, he was the best player. He did that right away. And he was hard nosed, man. And that guy just was his makeup was just ridiculous. And look, I don't think he's the best player of all time or anything like that. He might be the best competitor of all time. Think about Brian Scalabrine body, right? Athletic ability, but just able to make any type of shot. One of the best top 2 or 3 passers of all time, and just figured out against great athletes that they put anybody on him. They put 1 guy, 2 guys. It didn't matter. The guy was just ridiculous type player, the way he could finish games and make shots. I think that the same thing I think with Jordan. If Jordan really thought the 3-point shot was as important as Steph took it, and he would have developed the shot, would he be as good as Steph Curry? No. But his 3-point shooting would have been a different tale. I always thought that too. When I look back at Larry Bird's career and everyone said, well, Bird was a great shooter, I'm like, look at his 3-point numbers. There were years there where he only took there were years where he only took 50 for the season. In 81, 82, he was 11 for 52. So he didn't really think it was important. Now, when it came to 86, 87, the average of the top 10 makes were 80, and he made 90. The average to top 10 average of takes in the league that year, 214.7, he took 225. So when he figured out that it was an important shot, that he was going to put his hat in the ring, he developed it, and he shot around 40%. And he was a good shooter. But if he thought that would have made them more relevant and win 2 more championships in the 80s, you would have seen his numbers balloon up. But it was a circus shot. Coaches always wanted you to play through the post. They wanted you to play and take closer shots. You probably grew up with the 2 Bogues where coaches were saying, look, we got to get the ball inside. We got to go to the basket. Why are you taking 20-footers? You got to go, inside.
Yeah,
that's just the mentality of the game. And I think that's why I never really make distinctions with eras in basketball, because you got to factor in the way the game was played, coached, and established versus what it is now. And I think he was way off base. Look, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
So I hate comparing eras, bro, because it's like there's a lot of different things. Even the shoes they wore back then, and the technology we have today, diets, weight facilities, recovery. Like there's too much that can swing it. And like I've said from day dot, man, like players in 20 years are going to be infinitely better than I was, infinitely better than players are today, for the most part, right? The majority, right? You're still going to have your outliers. Like, does someone repeat what Steph done? Who knows? Or what LeBron done? I don't think so, but who knows? But it's hard to compare eras. The era competes with what they've got, so you can't disrespect it. You can say, oh, they probably couldn't.
Yeah.
If you take a player from back in the day and put them in today's game, could they play and compete? Who knows? Based on what they did back then, no. But to your point, if they worked on what was important today with that same work ethic they had, yeah, maybe. So it's just an endless argument. But I didn't like him. For a guy that's supposed to be real smart analytically and real basketball savant IQ, to say that era when it's on black and white and film and color, and you can get VHS tapes, probably DVDs, it's on YouTube. Like, go watch a video, man. They were getting away with some MMA shit on the basketball court for the most part. So you can't argue with that. All right, another one bites the dust with this fraud allegation. Sebastian Telfair, he frauded $358K from the NBA Health Fund. He's pleaded guilty. Now he was sentenced to 3.5 years for possession of a legal firearm and a bulletproof vest back in, I think, 18 or 19.
You gotta read that story. Did you read that story back then? What happened to him? No, not what happened to him, but what he was going to do. He literally had like ammunition all over the place. I don't know how he didn't get sent to like 40 years in prison with what he had on him. Like, I don't know what the deal was, but he had like multiple guns, multiple semi-automatic.
Bulletproof vest. Yeah, he was ready for war.
Yeah.
Maybe he was going to Iraq.
Maybe.
But yeah, anyway, he that's going to be taken into account. I assume he'd be on probation still of some sort. I wonder if this fraud, I wonder when it happened. Probably happened after he got out of jail. So he'll be on probation, I assume, on bail, on some sort of bail or good behavior, that he'll probably get a sentence out of this as well. If the other guy's got a sentence of 18 months and 2 years respectively, he's in some trouble. So another one bites the dust there. We don't have to get into that. And Myers Leonard, welcome back to the NBA. A 10-day deal with Milwaukee Pro after using an anti-Semitic slur on a streaming video game. He was basically blackballed from the league for a good part of 2 years. I'm not condoning what he said. It is what it is. But 2 years, pro, when you have guys that, there's guys in the league that domestic violence charges pled guilty and are playing within 6 months. Pretty harsh, in my opinion. We all make mistakes. He's apologized for it. He's met with rabbis. He's tried to do his all the good PR stuff that he has to do to get back in the league. But to be out of the league for 2 years, he's talented enough to be a good bench role player, in my opinion. I'm glad Milwaukee's giving him a shot, and hopefully, he's a mini Brook Lopez, in my opinion. So you got the veteran Brook Lopez, and now you got the younger version of Brook Lopez, and be interested to see how that all works out in Milwaukee.
Yeah, Bogues, he's a good kid. He's dumb for what he said, for sure, but he's a good kid. He didn't. You could tell he didn't mean anything by it. He was being a fucking moron and saying what he said. And look, he deserved a little bit of it. He deserved, I would have suspended him for the year. To me, I don't care how good of a player you are. Unfortunately, he's not good enough to say something like that. And like, if you're good enough, unfortunately, in that league, you can almost kill somebody, which has happened, and then people want to take you back if you're good enough. He wasn't good enough. He's a good player, but not one of those type guys. If he was different, if he was a top 50 player, top 100 player, top 150 player, they'd find a reason why he was a good kid, and it wasn't his fault. But he wasn't good enough, and he had to pay the price for it. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff doesn't make any sense. But 2 years, no, for sure not. I would have definitely, probably, most likely suspended him for the year. But just because you couldn't, in today's world, you couldn't like take him a month later, 2 weeks later, whatever. But for 2 years, come on now. I mean, you're taking money out of the guy's pocket. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't go on any hate rages. He didn't beat people up because of their religious backgrounds. He said something that was completely fucking idiotic. I think you're able, I think everybody should pay a little penance for that. I think somebody, like what he did. He sought out help. He sought rabbis. He went and did his community service. I think you should do that he should have done that the rest of the season. And then that following July, if he's good enough, pick him up. But yeah, 2 years is a
whole season though, pro. Even the whole season, I think would be harsh because if you want to use the same rule for everybody based on racial rhetoric, there'll be a lot of suspended players in the NBA.
Sure.
Right, with the usage of certain words and whatnot. Sure. So there is a double standard there, and he obviously has felt a big wrath and a heavy penalty, heavier than it should have been, because there's a lot of guys that say inappropriate things in the heat of the moment, and I think a fine and maybe a few game suspension would have been warranted, but
sure,
the whole season and then going into 2 seasons is pretty tough. The prime of his career, really, like he's towards the tail end, but still in his prime, early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, and that's just the way it goes, I guess. As we speak, Dame Lillard has 50, by the way, with 10 minutes left, Portland versus Houston. So I assume he has every chance, and it's a close game too. It's an 8-point game, so he's going to stay in the lineup. He could potentially go for another 60 ball, which is interesting. All right, Aussie Watch. Before we get to that, Aussie Watch is brought to you by Banter. Dabble the social betting experience. We can jump into the Banter channels, kind of like a chat group, connect with the Dabble community and ride a bet together. It's actually pretty cool. You get in there and see what people have bet and comment on it, whether it was a shitty bet or a good bet, and give feedback. Follow copy bets and jump into Banter. Go on, download the app and have a dabble socially and gamble responsibly. So Aussie Watch this week, it's pretty bare, only a few games. Some teams had 3, some 2, and we've got injuries. Ben Simmons injured over All-Star break. He's out. Dyson Daniels, his first action in over a month, 2 assists in 4 minutes at New York. So good to see him back on the floor, and he'll have to find his legs. Daly, 2 minutes of garbage time, so nothing to note. Paddy back in the DMP bandwagon. He has not played a minute since February the 11th. And it does not look like he's going to play because they got blown out in Chicago, and he still didn't get in the game. So maybe an injury there as well, but he's out of the lineup. Jock, a solid week, 2 games, 6 points per game, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, probably his most productive week in a number of weeks. And because he's finally got some minutes, Josh Giddey, 14.3 points, 7.3 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and 1 steal per game. Matisse Thybulle is playing as we speak. He currently has 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. He's playing better in Portland, as we said. He's found a nice rotation there. And then a couple of nights ago in Sacramento, he had 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. So he's getting his defensive numbers up, knocking down shots when he needs to, but nothing too crazy. Joe Ingles, another down week for him, 4 points, 3 rebounds, and half an assist. That's the glaring one. Usually when Joey's playing his best, he's got a line like 5 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists, something like that. But this probably the last month, he's had a bit of a struggle there. Josh Green, 10 points, 2 rebounds, 1.5 assists for the week. And without further ado, obviously Josh Giddey is back. He's 9th Bogues Aussie Player of the Week. So that wraps up the Aussies, pro.
Yeah, Green, actually saw him play today. He played solid. I think he's going to be a good starter and starting player. They love him there because he doesn't need the ball. His shot's falling. He's tough. He takes it to the basket. He's not afraid. So it was good to see. And Jock actually had 8 rebounds in 12 minutes today. So, it was pretty good to see. I think his consistent minute base is going to be right around there. It should be higher, but it'll probably be somewhere around there. I think he's outplayed by Ambo. I think they might go with him for at least the short term. So who knows? But that was in. Giddey won it for the 98th out of the 99th time. So
Well, it's hard. His numbers, he's almost triple-double like every week. So he's actually down on his usual numbers. But the competitors Paddy usually has a week or 2, but he hasn't been in the lineup. Jock doesn't get enough minutes to try and get massive numbers. So, and Jack White, I failed to mention Jack White. He's still DMP land. So, but for the national team, pro, you look at Dyson Daniels, Josh Giddey, Paddy Mills. Who else do we have? Josh Green. Daly's still kind of in the fray. There's 5 guards. You can't take them all. So. Joe Ingles is in there as well. Dante Exum's overseas playing really well. It's another guard. So you've got 6 guards that are playing at a high level around the world, right? It's going to be someone's going to get the rough end of the stick on the Boomers campaign, which is coming up into September this year is the World Cup, and then the Olympics next year in Paris. So picking that team is going to be very hard, pro. Going to be a lot of coaches pulling their hair out, and someone's going to get screwed. All right, NBL Australia, the FIBA break. So Australia, these games, pro. You probably don't follow it too much. But Australia's in the FIBA Asia Cup. And these games are not very beneficial for Australia. I mean, it usually is guys that, they took guys from the NBL teams that weren't in the finals, but it's a struggle beating, Kazakhstans of the world by 50 and whatnot. I don't know. I don't think it's good for the game. I understand it. It's the new qualifying path. What I hate about it is it pauses the NBL season. So there's an agreement between FIBA and leagues that you need to stop your season and let that be the kind of what everyone's looking at. And I don't think that's a good thing either, because it kills momentum for us going into a grand final. We're now going to have almost a 10-day break between games. It's not good, but I don't know. That's something that I would fix. I don't know how you fix it, but I don't want to go see Australia beat up. Probably, no offense to the players playing, but not many of those guys would have an actual chance of making the Olympic squad. Second, third odd best team that we could take, beating up on Kazakhstan and whatnot. And it's not just in the guys. Don't get me wrong; it's an honor for them to represent their country. But those games aren't really doing anything. And if I was a fan going to watch that, you'd be like, man, you kind of feel bad for the team getting pummeled. But anyway, that just passed. Simon Mitchell is gone from the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. That's no surprise there. He was part of their first season in the league, built them up. I think he's done a good job building them and getting to where they are, but I think it's the right decision to hand over the reins to someone else. They've kind of choked into two big finals the last couple of years. They need to make some changes. So that was done. And Sam McKinnon has also been fired as the GM of the Brisbane Bullets. So he's moving on to something else, and they've given him the flick with all the turmoil going on there. So I don't think it's going to be the fix for him, but they can hope. I also caught up with Peter Hooley, NBL analyst, former NBL player, and broke down the previous NBL season, all 8 teams that are not currently in the finals. We gave a breakdown of where they're at, where their season was at. That episode will drop a day or two after this one, so give that a listen. And we also gave a grand final preview, so look out for that later in the week. Stats, pro, useful or useless? You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Who in NBA history has the most games with 12 plus three-pointers made?
Larry Bird. Let me see.
Don't cheat.
No, I'm not. Probably Steph. How many players? Just one?
There's one player that has done it 3 times. There's one player that's done it twice, and there's no one else that's done it more than one time.
All right, I would definitely do Steph and Ray Allen.
No, Clay. Clay's at 3 because he had the last one a couple of nights ago where he was hot and hit 12 threes. Steph number 2 with 2. He's done it twice. No one else in NBA history has done it more than once. Useful or useless?
Useful. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
yeah, very useful.
It's a lot of fucking threes to make in a game, boy. I remember Brian Shaw, I think, had the record of 10. Did it
for a while,
in the 90s. Yeah, but that's a lot of threes, man. 12 in a game. It's hard enough to take 12. Well, not these days, but it's hard enough to take 12. Imagine making 12. That's crazy.
It's fun to watch though when guys get that hot. Like Clay, I watched that game when he got that hot, and he's coming off pin downs. Everyone knows they're running stuff for him to get another shot off and contested, and it just you just know it's going in. Like he's some amazing shots that he made. So he's having a bit of a resurgence pro this last month. He's found his shot. He's steps out of the lineup. There goes some injuries. He hit some big ones tonight again against Minnesota, and he's finding his legs a little bit. So congrats to him, and bouncing back from Achilles and a knee back to really good form, which he'll carry on into the off season and next season. And obviously he's been on record saying he wants to be an all-star again. He's heading that direction again. So I would say useful as well. I mean, that's tough to do. 3 times breaking NBA historical records, but easier to do it in today's game if you're a shooter, no doubt. But to make 12 threes is phenomenal. All right, Josh Hart, 3-pointers. 10 in his first 5 games as a Knick. 9 in his last 15 games as a Blazer. He's shooting 62.5% from deep as a Nick, and coincidentally, they're on a tear right now. I think 5 straight games, and they're playing really good basketball. Useful or useless?
Useless only because of the fact that it's not a lot of, guys can get hot for a little while, and he really hasn't shown that in a long time in his career that he can do that. But I mean, I'm not saying it's totally useless, but if you're comparing it useless for right now, I would say useless. But it is pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah, I'll go useless as well, but based on sample size, there's only 5 games in. But the reason why I bring it up is it's amazing how, players can struggle on Matisse Thybulle's the other one, right? Like they can struggle on one team and then go to another team that's just a jigsaw puzzle fits. I feel better with his team. I feel more comfortable. I know he's boys with Brunson. Maybe he feels better about being out east. I don't know. But it's amazing how much a system can change players' mentality and confidence, and this is a prime example. And I think this pickup, outside of the three-point shooting, I think this is one of the most underrated pickups that wasn't really spoken about during trade season. I like Josh Hart. I think he plays real hard. He's actually a very, very he's an elite rebounder for his size. He is often, I think he's averaging like 9 and 8 or something, or 10 and 8. Very good rebounder for his size. He's a very good finisher in the paint to draw fouls. And the three-point ones, that's the thing. He just needs to consistently keep it that he's not going to shoot 63% for the whole season, but keep it at 40. Man, he's a very valuable piece. So I love that acquisition by the Knicks, and I think it was very, very underrated and flew under the radar. So, all right, last one. The Sacramento Kings this season, a team that we've shat on for the most part of 2 years on this podcast, and rightfully so, Kings fans. I was a Kings fan as a young fella, so don't go too hard. But they have the highest offensive rating of all time.
Of course.
The first in points per game, first in clutch field goal percentage, undefeated in overtime, of course, 5th in assists per game, and they're about to end the longest playoff drought in the NBA, Pro. Useful or useless?
Everything but the best offense of all time, useful. I think the
offensive rating of all time.
Yeah, I fucking hate that shit. Because every week somebody breaks it. Every week somebody breaks that shit. It's crazy.
They are balling though. Mike Brown deserves credit. They're balling. We didn't give them a lot of respect going in. They're playing well.
No doubt, and they are back. It's great to see. No doubt about it. No doubt it's been great, but I don't like the offensive best of all time deal because it gets broken 7 times a year. Like the Mavericks, remember that one year, like the Mavericks got it, the Celtics got it, like, and then every week it's like, well, this guy's the best of all time. This is the best offense of all time. So that stuff gets a little bit skewed in my opinion, but I do believe based on everything what's going on in Sacramento right now, it's awesome. But I don't like the offensive rating thing. I'll say useless on that end. But as far as what's happened in that organization, they're definitely going the right direction. They've got good young players. They got a coach that's coaching them up. They're winning. They're third in the West right now, I believe. Yeah, all good. I just say it's useless with the best offense of all time deal. I'm not a big fan. The offensive rating of all time. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I think they're doing well. One thing I'll note, Pro, their press conference against, I think it was post the Clippers, was it? Or pre or post? De'Aaron Fox and Monk basically, the John Morant comment of, we don't care who's over in that locker room. They asked about the Clippers and what they think about Russ, and we don't care about them. Like, they need to be worrying about us mentality. Yeah. Pump the brakes, Kings. You're not there yet. Pump the brakes. I didn't like that. I think they've somewhat flown under the radar. I like confidence, but you're not there yet. You've made the playoffs for the longest playoff drought in the NBA. You finally made it. Don't start beating your chest yet. And it's different. No one expected you to do it this season. That's why you're sneaking up on a lot of teams, and rightfully so. You're playing well. But you say you finish, 3rd, 4th in the West, and maybe you win a first round, maybe you don't. Next season's a different story. You're going to have a target on your chest. So I didn't like those comments. I don't like that because you're not there yet. Get to a conference finals or a finals, win a championship, then beat your chest as much as you want. So that was just one little chink in the armor that I saw. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they can fix that. But I would say useful. They're playing real well. Mike Brown deserves a lot of credit. They're utilizing the talent that they have. Sabonis a phenomenal year. Fox a phenomenal year. Harrison Barnes has embraced a good veteran leadership role there. Monk is a bucket off the bench. They have a lot of pieces that can be very, very good. So I like the way they're going, and I love to see a franchise that finally gets out of the doldrums and can compete at a competitive level. What do you have this week? Fact or fake news? Actually, I got one for you. I got one for you.
Sure.
All right. On that All-Star theme, the USA versus the world game saves the All-Star game. Fact or fake news?
Oh, it's fake news. No. It'll be good for a year. It'll be good for a year. But it's not going to
like a new car, huh? New and shiny when you get it.
McClung saving the dunk contest. It saved the dunk contest for 1 year, and now next year is going to be the same old deal unless they start pumping some really good players in it, what people want to see. I just don't think so, Bogues. I think maybe a year, maybe two, but players are going to do the same, revert back. They're just going to be like, all right, it's not a gold medal. That's the thing. Like, they do that with the United States. They do the Nike puts on the Hoop Summit, where it's the United States versus the international team. And yeah, that's got a little bit of decent flair to it because those guys never really play against each other anyway, mostly. But for the NBA, these guys are playing against each other all the time. And it's like, it's still an all-star game. And it's still that deal. And I mean, what are they going to do? Give them $10 million a piece? Like, what's like, I don't think any prize money. All those guys are all-stars. Unless they're on their rookie deal, they're making $20 to $30 million to $40 million a year anyway. They're not going to care about a dollar amount. They're really not. It's and you're not going to do anything that's going to be like, maybe if you give them like 4 years of everybody gets 4 more years of service on their, on their career or something. Nothing is going to help that All-Star game, in my opinion. I think it's a lost cause. I think you just get rid of it, and I think you put more money, resources into like contests, celebrity games, meet and greets. Like you said, it's a great idea. Meet and greets with fans, breakouts, put them in like 3,000 seat situations where they could just talk to fans, do a Q&A, do something where they could not meet the player, but like be seen. I don't think it's going to help. I think it's fake news. What do you think, Bogues?
Yeah, I'll go fake news. I think it'll help for a year or two and draw some interest. But yeah, I think it's a new car. Like, it's new and shiny for a year till a bird shits on it and you get your first service and your seat's worn out, and then there's some new technology and a newer model. So I think it might help it for a year or two. Does it save it? No. What do you got?
All right, I'm gonna go an East team and a West team. So right now, the New York Knicks, sitting pretty well right now. I believe they're in 6th. Brooklyn Nets are in 5th. Right now, Cleveland's in 4th. Hold on, let me get the updated numbers just so we're good. Okay, so the New York Knicks right now is sitting at 9.5 back, tied with Brooklyn for 5th. Do they overtake Cleveland, who's 6.5 out? So they're 3 games out for the rest of the year. Cleveland's got 18 games left, and New York's got 20 games left. Do they overtake Cleveland for the 4th spot in the East? Fact, fake news. They will. Fact or fake news? No,
fake news. I think the Knicks are balling right now. But Cleveland haven't been playing that well as of late. Not as well as they have. They lost 3 straight. Before this win. Before that, they had that, a 7-game win streak. But then the last week, I think that the All-Star hangover, all that kind of stuff, pre and post, I think hasn't been great to them. But yeah, I don't see the Knicks going on a massive tear to that extent. I think they're going to make the 6 for sure. I think they can nab 5. I think they can, because I think Brooklyn's going to fall out. That's just my opinion. They're tied right now. I think Brooklyn falls out. I think Miami or Atlanta have a chance to sneak in. Even Toronto, by the way, have been playing better. Their last month, they're 7-3 in their last 10. They're the most informed team in that bottom half below 6 and below. 7 and below. So they might sneak up too. But yeah, I don't think the Knicks are going to be around 5-6 in my opinion. I don't think they'll fall out because I think they're 2.5 above 7. But yeah, fake news. They're not going to take Cleveland. I think Cleveland get home court against most likely the Knicks in 5.
You know what, Bogues? I've been so down on the Knicks for a while. I'm gonna say fact. I say they catch Cleveland. 3 games. I mean, come on. I'm like 28% anyway when it comes to these predictions, but I'm gonna go with them anyway. I'll go with the Knicks. I like the Josh Hart pickup. I think it's very underrated. I think they're defending a little bit better. I think they're playing a little confidence. 3 games. Give Spike Lee something to cheer for. Why not? So I say fact they catch them. And then let's talk about the Sacramento Kings. Right now they're sitting third, 6.5 out. In second, Memphis Grizzlies at 5 out. Do they catch Memphis in that second spot? Fact or fake news?
I'll probably go fake news, just based on. I haven't looked at the schedules. I don't know the strength of schedules and all that fun stuff. But I think Memphis are still a better team. You put Memphis and Sac in a series, I think Memphis wins that. But yeah, Sacramento, I think they've overachieved. I mean, I guess with all the shit going on in Phoenix, the Clippers and Dallas, even Golden State, injuries, trades, all that shit, they've all fallen, and Sacramento's taking advantage of that. But I still think, Sacramento plays Dallas in a series that starts today. You think Sac's winning that series? Outside of your question, Pro?
No, they're not.
Exactly. So I'm still not sold on Sac as far as I think they've had a great regular season, but I think they're a prime example of this is the first step of your rebuild. You got to learn the hard truths once you get to playoff basketball, and then you got to be better for it next season. That's kind of what I think. If they get through the first round and even potentially get to a second round, that's a great season for them. So no, fake news. They won't overtake the Memphis Grizzlies. I think 1 and 2 is pretty much locked in the West, as close as it is. I just don't see Sac improving that much to jump to 2.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know who I hate more in interviews, the Sacramento Kings or the fucking Memphis Grizzlies. But I agree with you. I think it's fake news. I don't think they'll beat them out. Although it's only a game and a half, but I think Memphis is good enough to close that deal out, because it is a big difference between getting 2 and getting 3. So in some
huge difference, and Phoenix is in 4, 9.5 behind first, so they're only 4.5 behind Memphis, and KD's room 2 back this week. So, I don't think they go on this massive tear, but they could go, they could be 75-80% for the rest of the season. That'll throw them in the mix to get to that top 3 and maybe even take it off Sac if Sac get it too far ahead of themselves, not worried about anyone but themselves. They drop a couple, Phoenix take a couple, So, but I'd have to check the strength of schedules. But on face value, I think that it stays 1-2 for Denver and Memphis.
Yeah, I think you're right. All
right, another episode in the books. Don't forget to check out that NBL wrap, which will drop a day or 2 after you listen to this one, for all your NBL news and our tips for the grand final and how everything went this season for your team in NBL.
Hooley,
Pro.
How old's Hooley?
He's early 30s. He retired early. He had some knee issues, yeah.
Did he play in the United States?
Yeah, he played at Albany.
It's funny, Bogues. I know a guy who coached him, and I think I saw him at the All China camp for Nike when I worked it about 10 years ago, which would sort of... It might have been him or his brother. Didn't he have like a brother who played too, I think? I forgot, but I went to this All China camp where they bring best players out of Australia and New Zealand, and I think he was at that camp. That's interesting.
Might have been, yeah. He had a great college career over there, and then played a lot in the minor leagues over in Australia, and played a little bit in the NBL. Grinded his way up there, but he had major knee issues, and he was just like, I could have got another 3-4 years in the minor leagues, but he's like, at what cost for a banged up knee? So I feel the pain, brother. I did it in the pros. So, but yeah, no, it was a good interview. And he's a commentator for the NBL, analyst, breaks down all the games. So he was a good guy to talk down how everything went. All right, Pro. We'll see you next week. Appreciate it. At Hooper Consultants for Pro, at Robo's on all other socials. We'll see you next week.
All right, see you later. See you next week.
Let's get Rogue.